So, I want to share a few of my thoughts on the conviction of Harvey Weinstein and the implications around that. Firstly, it's big news because this has been about 3 years in the making, for want of a better term. It's taken time, um, and I think it's definitely welcome news, but it certainly isn't a total sort of end to this saga. And not every woman involved in the Me Too movement is exactly celebrating because they see this as a very small victory in the grand scheme of things. Um, Harvey Weinstein has kind of become the central villain of this whole thing, but he's certainly not the only high-profile man implicated. The thing about Weinstein is, from fairly early on, I think the evidence was pretty damning against him. Um, and one of the survivors, one of the woman who really uh spearheaded this in a sense was a young actress by the name of Ambra Battalana, actress and model, I believe. I believe she's Italian. I'm not sure. But anyway, her situation was covered by ABC, the Australian broadcaster. And what's shocking about what she went through is having so blatantly been um, targeted by Weinstein. Um, the New York Deputy District Attorney's office actually made veiled threats against her because the power that Weinstein had um, actually meant that he could organize a smear campaign against her in the New York tabloids, which was really, when you think about it, repugnant. They tried to make out that she was a loose woman, she'd previously been a prostitute, and so on. Now, if you listen to the audio, this is there's several sources for this online on YouTube. It's pretty damning. Weinstein basically boasts about being a famous guy. Please don't ruin our friendship for this because she's questioning why I touch her breast. It's pretty damning, and there's really no way around it. So in the case of Weinstein, I don't think anyone can rationally dispute that he is guilty as charged, and he will probably spend the rest of his days in prison, not just for what he done to this young woman, but to others as well. And I have exactly zero sympathy with him. Um, but there is other things around the Harvey Weinstein case that raises questions. Why is it that for so long, powerful people in Hollywood, including many powerful women, said nothing? This is an important question because whilst people like Meryl Streep virtue signal on this, and they have, um, there are photographs all over the internet showing them fully embracing Harvey Weinstein, hugging him, acting like they're great buddies. Now, this is hardly the body language of people who find that, oh, that guy's repellent, let's stay away from him. It's very obvious that Harvey Weinstein enjoyed support because of the power that he had and because that there were people in Hollywood, many now established actresses, who basically thought, well, I've got a comfortable career, I've made my name, so why sacrifice that? In fact, Meryl Streep specifically was targeted by some campaigners who said she knew, and it's hard to reach any other conclusion. Um, that the Hollywood establishment didn't know about this. It has obvious echoes of the Jimmy Savile scandal here in Britain, although that's about a paedophile as opposed to uh, sex offender of young women. But same principle with Jimmy Savile, of course. For years he was a respected um, presenter who'd done a lot for charity. But there were always people who raised questions about Savile, yet they were silenced or seen as upstarts. And what happened after he died? The true, the true rotten core of what was going on was exposed, and the BBC, among other powerful institutions, was left very red-faced. So, if there's anything to come from this, it should be that nobody, nobody, no matter how powerful, no matter how respected, no matter how popular, should be above scrutiny. That's why I take a dim view when I hear people say, "Oh, this guy is he's a great guy. Look at the things he's done. He's a great actor. He's a great director, whatever it may be." Nobody should be above criticism or scrutiny. Nobody. And actually, this ties into the problem of superfans who are so blinded by their support for a particular celebrity that they cannot even fathom that there might be another side to that person. I have a big problem with that. That's why I don't have much respect for superfans because I don't think that they can think objectively. I'm not talking about people who kind of they really support someone, then they feel let down. I'm talking about superfans who cannot think critically because they're so blinded by their fandom of the person. Um, and there are also pertinent questions around this. I mean, in Britain, it isn't just about celebrity abusers, it's about how rape cases are dealt with generally. In Britain, for example, we have a woeful conviction rate as it stands. According to the Times, it's 3.3% of women who report rapes actually see justice. 3.3%. Now, I do not believe that's because 97% of men are innocent. I think it's because of the way this is handled. Um, 97% of men accused. I don't think that is the reason. I think it's because of the way these cases are handled. There are a lot of question marks over how claimants are treated. I mean, women, for example, need to hand over phones in some cases. There is a lot of things that are done in a way that can be seen as very insensitive. And it's difficult because, by the same token, you do get false accusations. And as a man, that's every man's worst nightmare being falsely accused of rape. So that has happened. Innocent men have been through that ordeal. And from their point of view, they can lose a job, they can lose a reputation, lose friends. That's also awful. But women or men for that matter who have been through this ordeal shouldn't feel the way that young woman who accused Harvey Weinstein did. Like they end up in a situation where it's victim blaming. Basically, there's questions on their character. I think if there is very plausible questions around the character of an accuser, fair enough. But it shouldn't be a starting point. It shouldn't be like, oh, what was she wearing, or how many boyfriends has she had, or something like that. That's appalling to try and make the victim feel guilty like she's done something wrong, particularly when you have that sort of David and Goliath situation. I think the way forward with this is that, and just a word about Me Too campaign. I definitely think when you look at some of the testimonies that have come through, when you look at the experience this young woman went through, you can see why Me Too came about, and you can see why it was absolutely justified. To me, that's a common sense thing. Whatever you think of feminism, that's just as a man and a human being, I can see why it came about, why it was necessary. We have seen other prominent men accused. Um, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey, Casey Affleck, and I should say in those cases, particularly with Morgan Freeman and Casey Affleck, it never went much beyond allegations and rumors. It hasn't got to the sort of level that the Weinstein case has. It's a difficult thing because this is something that really raises emotions, understandably so. I think that there has to be a very, very important balancing act between taking victims seriously, giving them the confidence that they will be treated with respect and they won't. I mean, one of the things that's come out of all of this is these non-disclosure agreements. Now, there should not be a situation whereby powerful, wealthy men can just pay off their victims. And Michael Bloomberg's coming under allegations. Elizabeth Warren put it to him, will you allow these women to get rid of these non-disclosure agreements? My thinking is if a man's innocent, why would he want to pay people off? I mean, if I've been accused of something, I'm not going to pay someone to be silent because I'm thinking I'm an innocent man. I know I'm innocent. I'll be found innocent in a court of law. At least you would hope that would be the case. But I would be suspicious if a wealthy man, a multi-billionaire like Michael Bloomberg, is taking that approach. It doesn't mean he's guilty, but it does raise question marks. Why make victims sign a alleged victim sign a non-disclosure agreement if you believe you're innocent? That doesn't make sense. It's like you're trying to hide something. I mean, at very best, that is just bad PR. So I think that's definitely something that needs to come under scrutiny. How easily that can be done. Um, but the other side of this is I am not comfortable with someone who's been accused of something then finding that they're being punished before they've even faced a court of law. By punished, I mean, for example, if they're an actor, being dropped from productions, um, companies pulling out of endorsements, this sort of thing. I can understand that if there is strong evidence being presented, but if it is simply at the stage of allegations alone and nothing else, then I think it basically amounts to a sort of trial by media. And I think in some ways Me Too has went too far in that direction, whereby I mean they've went beyond simply saying we need to listen to women and we need to respect accusers and we need to treat them with dignity and give them justice. That's all legitimate. But I think it's went beyond that to saying every man who is accused must be guilty. Kind of this black and white thing, either or. Oh well, because we must believe women, then it must mean that every man is guilty. There may well be some situations where women who are making accusations are being opportunistic because um, maybe they are trying to settle scores. In other cases, it may be because they've had the confidence to come forward because other victims of the same perpetrator have. So these are complex issues. And I don't think they should be presented as black and white. That's the problem because it's emotive. You're getting kind of two extremes. You're getting the Me Too side, which is saying, unless you absolutely agree with our movement and you just believe every single case, then you're downplaying rape and you're downplaying sexual harassment. That's one extreme. Then you get the other extreme of saying, oh, well, they're all just after attention, or I refuse to believe that any of these cases are true. When I think the Weinstein case has exposed abuses of power. And it isn't just Weinstein. I mean, I went to see Bombshell recently, which was about the Roger Ailes scandal at Fox News. Um, and then, of course, the Bill Cosby scandal. So it's not just Harvey Weinstein. So this verdict, I hope it gives some closure to victims in the knowledge that he will probably spend his last days behind bars where he belongs. Um, but it does open up other questions about non-disclosure agreements, about abuse of power, about the way accusers are treated. But I still don't believe that should mean that every single man who is accused is automatically vilified. And I'm not comfortable with this idea that you hear some sort of rhetoric. Some of the rhetoric coming from Me Too is like, um, it goes beyond just saying accusers need to be treated with respect. They're actually saying men who are accused need to be shunned. They need to be vilified. And they're not saying that in so many words, but that is the implication. Now, I am not comfortable with that, not just because I'm a man, but thinking from an objective viewpoint, I'm not comfortable with that. Surely common sense and reason dictates that this needs to be treated sensitively. If there is an accusation, it needs to be the woman or man, because there have been some male accusers as well in the Kevin Spacey case, who are making accusations. They need to be treated with dignity, with respect, and there should be no sense of victim blaming. However, there should also be, the investigation should be thorough. Um, and I think that the accused shouldn't be treated like they're guilty. Um, Hopefully, these cases go to trial sooner rather than later, because a longer waiting period is bad for both sides. An innocent man has to wait longer, and I'm not saying they are innocent, I'm just saying in cases where there's an innocent man, it just means basically what I'm saying is it spans it out for the innocent women who have suffered at the hands of these guys, and potentially innocent men who may find themselves falsely accused. By the way, just to be clear here, I'm not saying it's in equilibrium. I'm not saying there's an exact equal number of innocent men versus victims. I don't think that's the situation. I think there's probably more victims than there are falsely accused men. But there's another side to this, and I'll close with this. One other aspect about Me Too I don't like is how they're tying in everything into one bracket. So they're basically putting rape in the same bracket or the same sort of field as an inappropriate joke, or a man putting his hand on a woman's knee 10 years ago, and both parties are totally okay with it. There's actually been cases where women have said themselves they weren't bothered and they didn't feel harassed by a particular incident, but Me Too campaigners have taken it on themselves to present that as being in the same sort of category as the Weinstein case, because they're saying, oh, well, it just leads to other things. That's a big mistake. So I think common sense needs to come into this as well. Clearly, rape is a totally different thing from an inappropriate joke. And if you're thinking they're one and the same, that's, where do we go from that there? So I think going forward, nobody should be above scrutiny. And that's what the Weinstein case shows. It shows that young women who make accusations should be treated with respect, should be treated with dignity, and not made to feel like they are at fault. But by the same token, I don't think that every single man who is accused should be treated like a pariah. For example, if he's an actor, I don't think he should be dropped from productions because accusations have been made against him. And I am a little bit unsettled by this idea that people are punished before they've even been found guilty. Punished in the sense of companies and production and so on acting like he's already been found guilty. Let's be very clear about this. There is such a thing as due process. Now, I'm pleased that Weinstein's been found guilty because I think the evidence was damning, but due process does matter. Obviously, if multiple women are coming forward, then that is a very clear sign that um, the evidence is stacking against the accused. But if it is one person accusing one man, I think it's more ambiguous.